from street corner to success. The winter wind in Chicago was unforgiving. It slid between the tall buildings, howling like a wild animal, and swept across the streets in sharp gusts. Emily walked slowly, holding a small cardboard box in her arms. Inside were the last traces of her office life: a little green plant, a framed photo of her niece, a coffee mug with faded letters, and a handful of pens. Just that morning, she had been sitting at her desk, answering emails, when her boss asked her to step into the conference room. His voice had been quiet, his eyes full of something that looked like pity. "I'm sorry, Emily, but we have to let you go." She had nodded, holding back the lump in her throat, and packed her things in silence. Now, as she walked through the busy streets, the city felt different. The cars, the buses, the chatter of strangers, it all sounded far away, as if she were walking through a dream she couldn't wake up from. When she reached her small apartment, she set the box down on the table. The place felt colder than usual, and not just because of the winter air creeping through the windows. She sat on the couch, wrapped her arms around herself, and stared at the wall clock. Tick, tick, tick. She picked up her phone and opened her banking app's $72. That was all she had left. Rent was due in 12 days. Her chest felt tight. She walked to the window and pressed her forehead to the cold glass. Outside, snow was falling in soft flakes, dancing under the streetlights. Her voice was barely a whisper. "What can I do with what I have?" At first, there was no answer, only the quiet. Then a memory came, warm and golden. Her grandmother's kitchen. She could see it clearly: the worn wooden table, the old stove, and the big silver pot. She could smell the sweet caramel bubbling, hear the sharp, happy pop-pop-pop of corn kernels bursting. She remembered standing on a chair beside her grandmother, stirring the caramel carefully until it was golden brown. And she remembered the way neighbors would knock on the door, smiling, asking for a bag of that popcorn. Emily closed her eyes. Maybe I can make popcorn. The next morning, she put on her warmest coat and walked to the grocery store. She counted her money carefully as she shopped: popcorn kernels, sugar, butter, cinnamon. Back home, she pulled out her grandmother's old apron. The sound of popcorn popping filled the kitchen, and the sweet smell of caramel wrapped around her like a blanket. She poured the caramel over the popcorn, let it cool, and packed it into small brown paper bags. On each bag, she wrote in thick black letters, "Sweet Street." That afternoon, she went to the train station. The air was sharp and cold, turning her breath into white clouds. People hurried past, faces hidden behind scarves. Emily stood there, holding her bags of popcorn, her hands trembling slightly. At first, no one stopped. The minutes felt like hours. She began to wonder if she had made a mistake. Then, a man in a bright orange construction jacket walked up. "How much?" he asked. She told him. He bought a bag, opened it, and took a bite. His eyes widened, and he smiled. "This is amazing," he said, handing her money for a second bag. That moment was the spark she needed. She came back the next day, and the next. Soon, people began to recognize her. Some would buy 2 or 3 bags at a time. One day, a coffee shop owner stopped by. He tried her popcorn, then said, "Can you supply us every week?" Another time, a basketball coach ordered enough for his whole team. Emily started experimenting with flavors: chocolate drizzle, spicy maple, honey butter. Some days were so cold her fingers went numb, but she stayed until the last bag was gone. But not every day was good. There was one week when business was slow. On the third day, she sold only 2 bags. That night, she sat in her kitchen, staring at the remaining bags of popcorn, tears sliding down her face. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I should give up. She was still sitting there when there was a knock at the door. When she opened it, she found a little boy from her building holding 2 crumpled dollar bills. "My mom says your popcorn is the best thing in the world," he said shyly. "Can I have some?" Emily gave him a bag, and when he smiled, something in her heart warmed. That small moment reminded her why she had started. She decided she would keep going, no matter how hard it got. 6 months later, she had saved enough to rent a stall at the weekend farmers market. The crowds were bigger, and her sales doubled. She hired a high school student to help with packing, and a friend to make deliveries. 1 year after she had stood in the snow with $72, Emily was standing inside her own shop. The sign above the door read Sweet Street Popcorn. The air inside was warm and sweet. Customers came in smiling, some bringing friends to try the best popcorn in Chicago. When people asked for her secret, she would say, "I didn't wait for the perfect time. I started with what I had, and I showed up every day." But if you asked her in private, she'd tell you the truth, that she had been scared, that she had cried more than once, that some days she had sold nothing. But she had learned something important. Success doesn't start big. It starts small, in moments of courage, in decisions to keep going when it's easier to quit. And she would tell you this. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start now, even if it's small, even if you're scared. That small beginning could become the dream that changes your life. Most often, God allows disappointment in our lives for a greater purpose. Start small, start now, be consistent, and your results will be massive.